My name is Jane Panetta. I'm a curator and director of the collection here at the Whitney. We're standing in Jennifer Packer's exhibition, The Eye is Not Satisfied with Seeing. This is a project that was organized by the Serpentine Gallery in London. Here at the Whitney, it was organized by Rujeko, Hockley, myself, and with curatorial assistant Ambika, Trasi. The show is roughly a survey of the past 10 years of Packer's career and includes predominantly paintings with a selection of drawings as well, and there are a little over 30 works in the show. The exhibition's titled, The Eye is Not Satisfied with Seeing, is a phrase that comes from Ecclesiastes, and I think was really important to Jennifer as it gets at this idea of kind of the insatiable appetite we have for consuming images. But often, as we're bearing witness to traumatic events or difficult images, the kind of exhausting nature of doing that looking, that consuming, that digesting. This painting, Blessed Are Those Who Mourn, Brianna Brianna, is one of the most recent paintings in the show, and it's actually the largest painting that she's made to date. It's a painting that she was inspired to make after Breonna Taylor was killed by the police in Louisville, Kentucky. And she's thought about how can I depict both the trauma and the trauma that's experienced by Black individuals in this country, but then also the mourning that goes on and that follows an event like that. I think she was thinking about both of those things, this question of the trauma itself, but also the mourning. It's an unusual color in a lot of ways for a painting, and especially for a painting at this scale. But for me, I think the color really evokes this sense of intensity and intensity of experience, both intensity of trauma, intensity of mourning, and even a sense of heat almost that you feel from the painting. The painting amazingly has 3 different fans depicted in it, which is pretty remarkable. Some of the elements in the painting are actually taken directly from photographs of Taylor's apartment. And these were images that Packer saw online afterwards, and I think got very intrigued with. I think they made her feel even more connected to the incident, to Taylor. She said, these were things that could have been in my home that looked familiar to me. The poster there that says, too blessed to be stressed, and even the iron, those are all specific elements that were in those photographs. This is the first painting you see when you come into the show here at the Whitney. And I think a work like this is a reminder of how much of a conceptual painter she really is, that the painting has elements of the portraiture that she's so interested in. Jennifer likes to think less about abstracting things, which she'll talk about kind of wanting to dissolve images. The group of works here is a set of drawings by Packer. I think it felt really important for this show to include both drawings and painting. Drawing is a really important piece of her practice, but maybe lesser known within the work she's made. And historically, drawing has always sort of played second fiddle to painting, but I think for Packer, it feels really important and like a separate, not a preparatory practice for her painting, but this kind of separate and important space within the work she makes. And you know, these works feel very related, of course, to the paintings. Her willingness to work at a range of scale, the kind of finely rendered depiction of figures, but of course they're missing something that's so important to the paintings, and that's the use of color. For us, it was really exciting to show this group of works, show the ways in which she is playing with kind of revealing elements and abstracting elements, playing with scale, playing with how you depict individuals, but without the emotional charge that the paintings often get from the use of color, that there's sort of a simplification here. This is the painting, A Lesson in Longing. It's from 2019. It's a work that we included in the 2019 Whitney Biennial that Jennifer was a part of. This is a work that she worked on for quite a long time. And I actually saw it pretty early on in the studio when she was just starting to make it, but it really struck me right away. This is really a monumental painting, and I was interested in the idea that the figures are almost beyond life size. But I was also really struck by the color. The color seemed like an unlikely color to try to paint interior scene with. This color feels very particular. It's not red, it's not pink. You've used so much of it talked to me about this color. And the color actually comes from a painting by Jean-Michel Basquiat called Moses and the Egyptians, a painting that's really important to her. This is a postcard of the painting, and the main part of the painting is this kind of very pinkish red color in it. That was like another good reminder to me of how important the history of painting is to Jennifer, that she's constantly looking at historical paintings. This is also a painting that she's discussed in relation to a painting that the Metropolitan Museum owns by George Seurat. And it's a painting of a nighttime scene. It's a horizontal painting, much like this. It's kind of awash in a purpley blue color, similar to the kind of monochromatic feel of this painting. The title is A Lesson in Longing. So we kind of are cued that this is more about a feeling or an idea than a specific portrait painting. The more I looked at the painting, the more that was revealed to me that there are a lot of things sort of embedded in the painting that you don't see right away. You have to spend time with it. I noticed there was a cat here, there's a soccer ball here, there's kind of the ghost of a bicycle there. Another thing that I think has been really important for Packer is thinking about how does she paint Black individuals, celebrate them, but also maybe protect them and kind of honor them respectfully. The figure's face is largely obscured. They're there, and there's an implied sort of intimacy or closeness, even, I think, with Packer, but at the same time, she's holding a lot of that back. And I think for her, there's always been this kind of important space in which she wants to depict Black individuals, celebrate them, but not sensationalize them, and sort of not fully give them over to the viewer. Behind me, you see a wall of portraits by Packer. Many of them are individuals she knows well, and friends and fellow artists. And making portraits is something she talked about really starting while she was in grad school at Yale. The people would come to her studio and she would sort of casually say, "Can I paint you?" And it went from there. But over time, this became a really important piece of her practice. I think it's been a wonderful way for her to acknowledge individuals close to her. This is a painting here of the artist Eric Mack, who was in the Whitney Biennial with her in 2019. Jordan Castile, the painter, is in the center of this painting. Tamashi Jackson is here in this painting. So again, it's people she knows, but it's also become this kind of amazing historical record of artists around her. As you can see, like, there's no kind of single approach to how she makes a painting. These works are all cropped very differently. The canvases are scaled very differently. Some of them are just very limited parts of the figure. And color is a really important piece of them. A lot of them have a single dominant color to them. They're almost monochromes. And I think for her, that this idea of using a single color was sort of this challenge for her. She always said to herself, can I make a good painting predominantly in one color? Having a single color dominate a painting is a way of unifying all of the ideas, the memories, the thoughts about an individual that she brings to the painting. Of course, these are people she knows, so she has many memories, conversations, many things lead up to the moment she might make the work, but the color is suddenly a way to kind of conceptually unify all those ideas. This is a painting from 2018 called The Body Has Memory. And it's a portrait of Packer's close friend and fellow artist, Eric Mack. And this is a painting that Jennifer has often talked about in relation to this idea of wanting to paint something that feels real versus trying to paint something that looks real. I think for Packer, the idea of making a painting that truly looks real is sort of an impossible thing. So instead, she's focused her energy much more in the space of how can I make a painting that feels evocative of an individual, of a sitter? How can I kind of give it that right sensibility? And I think you get a clue to that impulse in her, even through how she's painted Eric's face in the work, that she doesn't kind of give you all the information about the face. Some of it is kind of more rendered, other parts of it are dissolving more into the overall canvas. On the one hand, I think that's her impulse to protect Eric and hold back some of the information, a desire not to kind of fully give him over to the viewer or the sitter. But at the same time, I think it's also about a sense that I'm never going to kind of perfectly paint or convey a real likeness of him. I'm much more interested in this feeling. And in order to do that, she can give you kind of some parts of the face maybe more carefully painted or more carefully rendered. The mouth, for example, the left eye, but you don't need all of that information kind of in the same register to understand and appreciate who and what this is. This is a group of floral still life paintings by Packer that she's made since roughly 2015 to 2020. And in addition to being someone that makes portrait paintings and kind of larger, more environmental scenes, making these floral still lifes has increasingly been an important piece of her practice. She'll talk about this as being something that people have not always quite known what to make of, that it seemed almost anachronistic for a young painter in the 2000s to be making floral still life that have historically been thought of as such a kind of academic painting style. And she's definitely interested in the floral still lifes of artists like Manet or Fantin-Latour. But I think for her, it felt like a wonderful break from the portrait paintings. Often the portraits, the sitters are people she knows well. And there's a certain amount of, energy expended in making those works. So these became almost a kind of break from that. But then I think as she started to make them, beyond them feeling like a distinctive thing from the portrait painting, they also became an exciting vehicle for her and another way to honor life beyond simply a portrait painting. So this is a painting from 2017 called Say Her Name, and this is another floral still life painting she made in response to the death of Sandra Bland, who died in police custody in Texas in 2015. And Jennifer was really following the story, felt a lot of empathy for it, and really wanted to, again, think about a way to memorialize Bland's life without making a painting of Bland or of the incident. One thing that really interests me about this is the scale of this painting and the cropping of it. It's large for her and for a floral still life painting in a lot of ways, and it's cropped very closely around the floral arrangement. Again, to me, suggesting that it's more about kind of this subject, this idea that she wants to impart than a true kind of classical still life. There's no vessel, there are no other objects, you barely know what's around. It's kind of in an abstracted space. But this was a case where she very pointedly used this idea of the floral still life to a kind of political and social end. I hope you'll come see Jennifer Packer's exhibition, The Eye's Not Satisfied with Seeing, on view here at the Whitney until April 17th.